When the sun goes down and the lights are low, there's a place where the real talk flows. Rob and Andrew bringing that spark, unfiltered truths after dark. Talking politics, culture, the state of the scene. No spin, just facts in between. From breaking news to stories untold, these voices come bold and cold. They light up the night, no fear in their eyes. Cut through the noise, expose all the lies. Tune in, buckle up, it's gonna get deep. They're waking up minds while the world's asleep. After dark with Rob and Andrew, speaking the truth like they're born to do. Voices strong, opinions tight, shining in the midnight light. After dark, no holding back. They keep you steady when the world's off track.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to After Dark with Rob and Andrew. I am flying solo today without Andrew, but I do have a special co-host tonight. She is Heather Robinson, a contributor for the New York Post. Heather, how are you?
Doing well, Rob. Thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. Heather, thank you for joining me tonight, filling in for Andrew. As I've told our listeners, Andrew will be on soon. He's just had a hectic schedule, but he's coming back. So until then, Heather is going to keep that seat warm, and she's going to help me dissect current events and things that are happening in the news. Heather, I have to admit, there is a lot that's taken place as of lately in our news. And I just want to, dive in and dissect it. Well, before I do that, I got to admit, I'm sure some of you can see my background. You see my Christmas wreath. I have not put up the Christmas tree yet, unfortunately. And I don't know why. I'm like dragging around. I do have my small Christmas trees out, but eventually the Christmas trees and Heather, the menorah, will go out. I want to say happy Hanukkah to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How was it? How was your Hanukkah?
Well, it's still going on, Rob. Hanukkah is
okay.
8 days, 8 nights. Started last Sunday and will continue through this Sunday. I believe that's December, what is that,
December 21st, yes.
So that will be the final night of Hanukkah. It was great. I mean, look, it's been a rough time for the world Jewry, I would say. So it's been sad because of the Bondi Beach massacre, because of this tragedy with Rob Reiner's family. We feel a certain connectedness as Jews, I think, to each other, but particularly in cases of terrorism. And we grieve for our fellow Jews, but also it contributes to a feeling of unease and a climate of fear. But I nevertheless, Jews have been gathering all week for Hanukkah. I was in New York City and participated in some great gatherings. It's a festival of light. It's a festival of freedom. A lot of people maybe don't realize that what Hanukkah commemorates is a military victory, the victory of the Maccabees, Jews of old over the Assyrian Greeks, I believe. Yeah, they defiled the temple. They were trying to prevent Jews in ancient times from practicing our religion. And this was an example of a group of, actually, they were very studious Jews, the Maccabees, as many Jews are today. They weren't the obvious sort of warriors that you might, expect, or building their lives around, muscling up and arming themselves, but they organized themselves and they fought back and they won, and they kept these Greeks, these Assyrian Greeks, from defiling the temple, the ancient temple. And the miracle was that the oil in the lamp lasted for 8 days. Actually, my godson, who is only 6 years old, he educated me about something last night, because he said, I said, well, are we going to light the menorah? And he said, well, Heather, it's not the menorah, it's the Hanukkah. There is no more menorah. I was like, what? Apparently we use the term menorah, but it's not really correct. The menorah was the ancient lamp. But, I looked it up and he was right, this little whippersnapper, that basically after the defilement of the temple, and then the Jewish warriors took it back, and they were victorious. They then created a new lamp which had 8 well, really, I think it's 9 candles, because the one in the middle, the shamas, you use to light the others for each night. And the old menorah had, I think, like 6 or 7 candles. So it's a Hanukkah that we light, which is reminiscent of the ancient menorah that was in the Hebrew temple. So anyway, that was a long answer to your question. How am I doing?
Well, no, but it's good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're going to talk about the anti-Semitism that took the killings, assassinations in Australia. But before I delve into that, I want to say that we're coming up on the Christian belief, coming up on the birth of our Lord and Savior,
Yes,
Jesus
yes.
Christ, which is on the 25th.
Yes.
Now, we
It
don't know
always
when
comes,
exactly,
yeah.
like almost hand in hand. We don't know exactly when it was born, but the scripture says that it was the coldest month of the year. And so we consider Christmas, December 25th, as that month. Now, pivoting back to what you were talking about, a sad time in the Jewish community, I think that a sad time in humanity as a whole, because as humans, we feel the grief that our Jewish brothers and sisters are feeling, and we denounce the attacks that took
Thank you.
Australia the same way when we came on not too long ago. You denounced the attacks that are taking place on Christians in Africa and some of the Middle Eastern countries. And when you look at all of this, because we've done a show with this, and we're going to try to have back on Simon Dean, who talked about this, who came on, and just looking at the violence that's taken place against Christians and Jews,
Yeah.
anti-Semitism, anti-Christianity, and it begs a question, what's going on here? What's happening? And I have to say, I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I know a lot of times people like to dance around the obvious. They don't want to speak the truth out of fear that they're going to hurt someone. But only when you address the matter head on are you able to get a resolution and move forward. And as of lately, it does seem as if though there are attacks on Christians, Jews, and conservatives. And these attacks, so it would seem, are coming from the left. Now, I know we could say that it's
Not completely, not only. Yeah.
finished. We can say that it's on both sides. But I want to deal with the now. And what we see in the now are conservatives, Christians, and Jews who are being attacked. We have to admit what we're seeing and not denounce it. And whenever it comes up, you do have the left trying to pivot away from it. I saw the speech from Benjamin Netanyahu just recently, where he gave a harsh condemnation for the Australian Prime Minister, because he said that this is blood on your hands, because we've been telling you for the longest what was happening, the anti-Semitism in Australia, and you chose not to address it. Since the horrible attack on October 7th in Israel, we have seen other attacks within the Jewish community. You look here in New York City during I think it was the winter of 2024 on the college campuses. You had kids shouting from the river to the sea. It was just going nonstop. And as soon as Trump said, we're going to get peace between Israel and Hamas, the left went silent. Where were their voices? Why weren't they pushing, saying, wow, here we have peace? Instead, they went silent. They decided to not address what was actually happening, as if though they wanted it to continue. And then once Hamas seemingly broke the peace deal by executing Palestinians, the left refused to address it. And to this day, they're yet to call it out. I mean, and this is dangerous. Going back to Australia with what happened there. And we're hearing that the police who were there, they saw the attacks, and for about 5 minutes or so, they did absolutely nothing. Except for a brave man who happens to be a Muslim.
Yep.
He tackled the guy who was shooting to prevent further carnage. Do you hear the left talking about this? No. They're making it seem as if they're, oh, well, we don't know what happened and we've got to wait I mean, this has got to be called out because it's not good. Look at what happened on the campus of Brown University. Now, we don't know all of the facts, but clearly what we do know is that a young woman, Ella Cook, a prominent Republican on the campus of Brown University, an extremely liberal university,
Okay.
was killed.
Oh, is that right? She was a conservative.
Yes,
I didn't know
she was
that.
she was actually the vice president of the Young Republicans.
Oh my.
And a lot of people are saying that the folks at Brown University are dragging their feet to
Mm.
try to solve this because they don't want to deal with what's going to come afterwards.
Mm.
I don't know if that's to be true, if she was targeted, but if she was, it's not good. When will we have justice? When will these people who are doing all these bad acts be held accountable? We have to call it out. We have to call out what we're seeing. And it has to stop because we see the rise of anti Semitism that's taken place. We see the rise of attacks on conservatives. And I've mentioned this before. I mean, there's just like a laundry list. You have President Trump, who was almost assassinated twice. You had Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated. Charlie Kirk just didn't die. His life was stolen from him by a radical, an indoctrinated young man. Well, allegedly Tyler Robinson. Now, I know that there are some that are out there that are saying, oh, he couldn't have done it. Some, let's just put a name on it, Candace Owens. Let's move on now. He couldn't have done it. We had the almost assassination attempt of Lee Zeldin when he was running for governor here in New York City. Steve Scalise. And the list goes on. There were many people on the Hill. Dan Bongino, when he was attending a Trump rally, he and his wife were accosted. Oh, and by the way, I posted something on Twitter the other day about Dan Bongino, who's resigning from his position as the FBI, deputy FBI. And when I posted it on X, I had playing in the background Bon Jovi. So I put on X, John Bon Jovi resigns.
Oh.
Like someone called it to my attention. I was like, oh my gosh. But I thought that was like, throw that in there. It's kind of funny. But yeah, he also was accosted. And the list goes on and on and on during Trump's first term in office. Many of his staffers were attacked. And Maxine Waters even said, gather around them and tell them that you're not welcome. We have all of these people on tape pushing vile rhetoric, but they're yet to be called out. They're yet to be held accountable. When will they be held accountable? Why is this constantly happening? I mean, help me make sense of it, Heather. What are your thoughts?
Well, I hadn't realized that one of those poor students was a prominent conservative on campus. I would definitely be looking at that. And I understand there was also an MIT professor killed in his home in the same time frame, and authorities are exploring whether there could be a link. I think that there is a climate in which these loony, sick, furious, criminally insane people are targeting more often, conservatives and people who support Israel. Mental illness is a big concern of mine, as you know, and I think that, yes, there's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of things that, I think mental illness often coalesces with other forces in the culture. People latch on to things, and when you have a lot of hate flying around and grievance, I guess you're always going to have some of that in the world, but it certainly doesn't help anything. And I did want to say that I think in the case of Bondi Beach, by the way, I appreciate your recognition of that brave Muslim man, Rob. And I know Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel also made a clear statement commending him, talking about how he is a good Muslim. And I'm glad we're having that discussion because I think it's important. You know, I often, when we come on, I say that I like, you know, I believe in calling out the enemy, but I believe the enemy is Islamism, not Islam universally, not Muslims universally. This is an example of a wonderful person who does identify as a Muslim. And this is part of why this is such a difficult war to fight, because not everyone who is a Muslim is a horrible hater person. I mean, people who choose to focus on the teachings that are the most extreme that can be found in the Quran. And I mean, I'm not an expert on what is the true Islam. All I know is that there are good people who are Muslim and there are evil people who are Muslim. And this is part of what makes our task very hard in the free world, because we can't fail to recognize the real enemy and the ideological fanaticism that undergirds this hatred of Christianity, of Judaism, of freedom, of women's rights, of everything we hold dear. But we also can't paint with too broad a brush. And we're dealing with an enemy that uses the most extreme, worst teachings of Islam, or maybe perverts them. I don't know. But the bottom line, I do know as a person of common sense, is that you have some good Muslims out there and you have some evil ones. And it's important to remember the good ones and to acknowledge them and to stand with them and encourage them and say thank you.
Right,
And
but I will say this: we do need more Muslims to call out these bad actors in the faith. We need
And this
more
guy,
of them.
yeah, he did more than just call it out. I mean, he went and risked his life, and he is going to make it from what I read. But apparently, after he tackled the first shooter, the other one went for him and shot him a couple
I
times.
think it was his son, the
Mm.
shooter's son, went after him.
Yeah, nice family day, huh?
We need more of them to stand up and call this out. Even here in the United States, we see what's happening, and a lot of people, when you do call it out, they say, "Oh, Islamophobia, you're against Muslims." No, we're against the bad people. We're against bad actors.
People who have a fanatical interpretation of Islam and view that as their imperative to kill in the name of it. That's what we're against. That's Islamism. That's, I think, a useful term, or extremist, militant Islam. That's what we're against, not
Yeah,
all of Islam, and certainly not all Muslims. I mean, look, people don't get much better than this man who did that. And I mean, it's not really so surprising to me. I have, some people in my life who are Muslim, who are wonderful people. It may be that in general in Muslim cultures, there's not as much emphasis on speaking up and speaking out and being the dissenter. It may be that that's more of something that tends to be more aligned with Judeo-Christian values, just the way if I'm, I think it's fair to say that in Asian cultures, for instance, in Eastern religions, there's so much more emphasis on being part of the whole, the harmony of the family and the community, subordinating your own individual will and opinions, etc., to the harmony of the whole. Let's face it, it's hard to speak out and speak up and dissent, even here,
out
because
of
human
fear,
nature,
right?
right? But people like you and me, Rob, I mean, we're opinionated, we're outspoken, we pride ourselves on being such, and not afraid of a strenuous debate. We want to deal in the realm of ideas as individuals. But I mean, I'm just offering not an excuse, but kind of a theory, I guess, about why we don't see more Muslims engaged in dissent, intellectually. Although there are some. I mean,
Right,
there's
but because
Irshad
there's a
Manji.
huge pushback. Let's just be honest. There's a huge pushback. I mean, even here
Mhm.
in the States, whenever you speak out, there's a huge pushback of folks on the left. They want free speech. They talk about free speech, but the moment it's their free speech that they want. They want to protect their rights to attack you, their rights to go against you. But the moment you speak up, they will call you a racist. They will call you xenophobia, Islamophobia. I mean, they'll call you everything because they don't want to hear what you're saying. So you can only imagine a small group of Muslims who are here that would speak out and call out the injustices and call out what they're seeing. As I mentioned, 2024, look at the college campuses and you look at the division that was there. You had these students who were going against the Jewish students. You had students who were going against the Christian students. And anyone who spoke out, you were called a racist. You were called a colonizer. And we see this day in and day out, and it has to stop. And when you call it out, sometimes even on our side, we'll say, oh, well, you're trying to censor them. Oh, well, no, you're not trying to censor them. You're trying to let them know that my voice matters just as much as your voice. I mean, we spoke about Tucker Carlson and some of the things that he was saying, which to me, I thought, wow, and to call him out, people were saying, oh, you're trying to silence Tucker Carlson. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to silence Tucker Carlson, but some of the things that he's saying, it makes me wonder, like, dude, come on. I mean, this is borderline kind of hate with some of the things that you're saying. And but people will say that you're trying to silence him, because he's entitled to what he wants to say. But
you're just saying what you think about what he's saying. That's not the same thing as threatening him or trying to silence him. People are so. Anyway, I agree with you. By the way, that I did want to say that I think. I'm not engaging in the old moral equivalency. Oh, it's the both sides. I hear you that it's not equal. It's been anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, which do overlap heavily. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, you can't really be one without the other. They're pretty close to the same thing, because anti-Zionism is effectively saying Jews don't have the right to a secure homeland for Jewish people. So if you're anti that, I mean, especially given the Jewish history of persecution and the Holocaust, but you're not against Muslims having Muslim majority and Muslim government-based countries, or you're not against other forms of nationalism in which people of a certain ethnicity want to stick together and have their language be the official language of the country and their culture predominate in the country. I mean, if you're not against a Ukraine that's independent of Russia, and you're not against, French people retaining their language and culture and their rights to have a border, but you're against Israel's right to exist, you're anti-Semitic, because what's the difference? I mean, Jews aren't the only ethnic religious group in the world who want a country that reflects our values and ties of kinship. That Israel doesn't prohibit other people from moving there, from having full rights. It's just a distinct country. But so if you're against that, but you're not against pretty much the rest of the world, which is not a one world state, but a group of very distinct individual states with borders and ethnic identities and languages, then you're anti-Semitic. So sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to get caught on a tangent, but we were talking about you got to rein me back in here, Rob. Remind me now.
No, but what you're saying, I hear what you're saying. So we're talking about anti-Semitism. And,
yeah. On the right. Well, the thing is, though, Tucker Carlson has gone, I can't tell if he's just gone opportunistic and he's playing to the anti-Semites, but because he's a smart guy and he's worked with Jewish people, and he's an acquaintance of mine. I think he's smart enough to know better than what he's doing. I think he's playing on a lot of tropes, and he's singling out Israel.
It's like he's scared. He's on the borderline. He's like, I'm not going to go completely over, but I'm not going to stay on this end. And I think therein lies a danger, because you do have a lot of people who are out there who are looking for you to take this side or that side. And when you start saying what they want you to say, it's like, oh, wait, he's saying it, But I think we have to be careful. Now, I want to move on because we're cognizant of the time. I want to get your thoughts on, let's see here, where should we go? I want to talk about, we talked a little bit about Brown University. I think I'm done with that until they come up with something new. But I want to get your thoughts on the Rob Reiner situation in California. Very unfortunate situation. His son, allegedly, so they say, killed the mom and the dad. It's just, and when I hear about it, he was on drugs. It makes me question, Trump's new position to his new position on marijuana. Now I know people say, well, it's for medicinal purposes,
Yeah.
yada yada yada, but I am not completely sold on this whole
Neither am I.
marijuana thing.
Neither am I.
And this shows, folks, look, we're not agreeing with Trump now, and don't think I'm going to go out and not vote for him, because I am going to vote for him, but I just don't agree with the recent move that he's making. But that being said, what are your thoughts on Rob Weiner and son?
Well, I'm with you in general, Rob. I'm not convinced that that's not a gateway drug all too often. And in terms of the Reiners, I mean, all politics aside, my heart goes out to their family. This is a case of severe mental illness of the worst kind. And I do know from my own life and associations that I don't think there's anything worse in the world. I really don't. I don't, horrible as physical illness is, horrendous as it is for a child or anyone to be physically ill. Honestly, I think that kind of severe, unremitting, mental illness that it's like it just destroys the mind is probably the worst affliction any human being or family could suffer. It would appear that family did what they could, did everything they could. This young man was apparently in and out of rehab something like 17 times. He lived on their property. So unlike a lot of, or some families anyway, who just can't take it anymore, they didn't abandon him to his fate. His father tried to help him make a movie a few years ago, try to help him have a career. And it's just, that kind of mental illness has to be a horrendous torment for the individual and the family. I'm a big believer that the state of treatment for the mentally ill in this country is very inadequate. I know it's not an easy fix. I'm hoping that maybe AI will have something more to offer us. Although, I've heard nightmare stories recently as I've been doing research about people I know who suffered from severe depression. There are treatments, there are things that can help, and there are ways to get help. And, if anybody out there is listening, I had my own bout with very acute anxiety about 2 years ago, which came on me, at this time in my life. I've generally been a healthy, happy person almost all my life. But even that degree of struggle was horrible. And so I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in that guy's brain. And I'm not going soft. I'm not saying what he did wasn't evil, but I do think clearly he appears to have been absolutely afflicted. And I just think this country really would do well to invest more in cancer research, mental health research and care. Try to, worry a little less about whether the world has gotten a half a degree warmer in the past several hundred years and more about the
Well, we're being told
raging.
it was a complete hoax almost.
Well,
what
I
they
don't
were
know about a
saying.
complete hoax, but I've been a skeptic of the degree to which enormous funds and resources and energy have been poured
Al Gore
into
got
this.
rich off of it.
Oh, for sure. And we have all these questionable wars. We have resources being poured. Now I'm sounding like an old school liberal, huh?
Well, no, but now they want to pivot. Even Bill Gates came out. It's like, oh well, maybe we should focus on something else, because
How
they've been
about
lying.
mental illness? How about
Right.
real nonpartisan research into
Well, what I
what the
think
hell
what I
is
think they
going
should
on?
do. I think they should bring back the mental institutions, and they should be
Well,
able to
improve
lock
them
people
though,
up.
Rob. Improve them, not have
Well,
them be
yeah, you got to
nightmare.
improve them, because here's my fear. And again, being honest, the mental institutions went away during the Reagan era.
Yeah.
And
apparently
there
so.
was a reason, because you have people who would try to put their loved ones away when there was nothing wrong with them. They would pay doctors to
Yeah.
say that the person is, has mental issues, and then they would lock them up, either
Sure.
because it was a spouse trying to gain access to a wise fortune, or vice versa, inheritance. So they would lock them up, which isn't good. But now what we have, I don't think is a solution. You have people who are clearly mentally ill walking amongst us. Look at what happened not 2 weeks ago at Macy's here in New York City, a woman who had just
Yeah.
been released from the mental institution went to Macy's and stabbed a mother who was changing her baby.
I
Now, this
know.
same
Yeah.
woman I'm hearing had put threats on, oh gosh, was it a Supreme? On the life of Elizabeth Warren, had said that she was going to kill Elizabeth Warren. And this woman was just let go from the mental institution. And then she goes and she stabs this woman. Thankfully, the mom and the baby are still living. Look at what happened with the subway killer in, I think it was South Carolina. A woman was killed in Chicago. And we see this day after day, time after time, that people who are suffering from mental illness, it's like they have more rights than we do.
hmm
And
Yeah.
I think I sometimes I don't
It's
feel
not so
comfortable.
good for them either. I mean, and I understand they have civil liberty. You can't just throw away everybody with the. I just think that we need a reformation of the whole mental health industry in this country. I think that I have, I have some ideas, but maybe that's for a longer conversation. But in brief, I think that myself, I was able to help myself out of, I'm not schizophrenic, I'm not manic depressive, I don't have, a major mental illness, but like a lot of Americans, I've had my struggles, and I've been fortunate to have the supportive families,
Mhm.
finally found the right doctor, which was not easy because there are a lot of not so great therapists
Yeah.
out there. And when you're struggling, you're vulnerable. And I get it why a lot
And a
of
lot
people
of doctors, a lot of people in the medical profession will take advantage of it. Look at case
they're
in
busy
point.
changing boys to girls and girls to
Well,
boys
I was
instead
about
of
to say that.
addressing real,
I was
the
about to
real
bring that up.
issues.
Right.
Yeah.
JFK just came out and said that, they're making that a crime for these doctors in hospitals to try and change the sex of a child. I mean, that's long overdue. And when
Mhm.
did this all happen? The genesis of this, all during the Biden administration, we just saw an influx of kids saying that I'm this, and I'm thinking, this is wrong. Why are we pushing this? And I've said this before, and I want our listeners to hear this clearly. You have a lot of parents who bought into this idea. I think some of these parents were genuine parents and they wanted to help their children. But these doctors and these medical professionals were pushing this gender reaffirming surgery. And if you want your child, would you rather have a dead child or a child who's going through this operation? And against the parents' better judgment, they agreed, okay, let's do it. But deep down inside, they probably knew this is not the right move. So for them to admit it now, knowing that they have like forever damaged their child with this surgery, I mean, can you imagine if they were to accept this? I mean, they too would go into a mental breakdown. So they will continue to push this and saying this was the right thing, although knowing this was not the right thing because it does not change anything. The person is still the gender that they have always been. And then when you have these hospitals and doctors saying, oh, well, the doctor assigned me this at birth. No, they did not assign you that at birth. You were born that way. But under the Biden administration, the Democrat regime, a lot of this stuff came to fruition and they were pushing it. And it was wrong. And I'm glad now our Secretary of Health is coming out and saying it's over. Time is up. There has to be accountability. We're not going to continue to push this. When you get 18, you can do whatever you want to do. But a child, pushing this on a child, parents, wake the heck up because it's wrong. And as you said, Heather, when you pivoted to it, that's the reason why we don't have good doctors to speak to people when there are mental crises. And no, Mandami, having a social worker to come out and address those issues is not the solution. You need police officers to go out and assess the situation, lock the person up, and then you can introduce a social worker. But until then, don't put the social worker's life in danger. It's ridiculous.
Well
I mean,
said.
it makes
well
no
said.
sense.
Well
Okay,
said.
moving
You're
on.
right. Mhm.
What are your thoughts now on, I don't know if you've been following this, Jack Smith, him testifying on the Hill?
I'm gonna toss that one back to you, Rob, because I haven't been following it.
Well, I'm going to share this with my listeners, my thoughts on it. We know that's coming out that a lot of the folks in the FBI had mentioned to the Biden administration that there wasn't a warrant or a need to go and I would say invade Mar-a-Lago But the Biden administration, with what was the guy's name, Merrick Garland, said, no, we're going to do it anyway. And they went in and, again, invaded Mar-a-Lago looking for something that wasn't there. And this was all designed to stop Trump, as were so many other of all their other little games. It started with Russia collusion, moved from there to Ukraine and the phone call. I mean, it was like an endless witch hunt to stop Trump. And when you really look at it, I'm going to look at what Harmeet Dillon said. This was actually an infringement on his civil liberties to stop him from talking, to stop him from being able to function as an American by taking away many of his rights and with the intent of locking him up and throwing him in jail. This is what you got under the Biden administration. And while Biden was doing that, of course, inflation was just spinning completely out of control. We were losing jobs. We had people coming in across the border. I think right now we have like 10 million folks who have come here from across the border who should not be here. Look at Somalia, the Somalians that are here in Minnesota, and they built the Minnesota out of $2 billion, $2 billion plus, and the numbers keep rising. Ilhan Omar, how did she get here? I mean, all of this needs to be looked at. But instead of focusing in on it, Joe Biden had Jack Smith creating a case against Donald Trump where there was no there. And I was hoping that they would have his testimony live so that the American people could see it. But of course, it was behind closed doors, which I never agree with, because you'll have Democrats coming out and spinning their version of it, the same way they're starting to spin their version of Trump blowing up those narcotic boats in the Caribbean Sea. I don't care about those people. We're stopping them from bringing in weapons of mass destruction in our backyard. But you've got Democrats saying, oh, no, you're killing innocent people. No, they bombed them. And then when they saw that they were trying to recover the drugs, they did it again. It's perfectly legal. Doesn't make any sense. Why are Democrats trying to defend narcotics coming into the country? This is who they are. They're taking the wrong side. Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know as much about all of it as you do, but I do hope, let's put it this way, that we're being judicious about that.
Well, why wouldn't we be judicious about it? Why would we just go out and just start killing people?
Well, I mean, when you're at war,
well, we're not at war. We're not at war.
Right. That's the
protecting.
issue.
We're protecting. We're
right,
protecting the homeland, which is the
different.
Constitution. It's the constitutional duties and the rights of the president to protect us against foreign invaders, to protect us against weapons of mass destruction.
But it gets murky when I mean, this is why, for instance, look, not to keep.
I see it perfectly clear.
Well, maybe, but I'm just saying, in cases like World War II, okay, or Israel's situation, let's be real blunt about it. It was such a black and white war situation as it is. It's kill or be killed. That's the bottom line. That's why all of this, how can I put it? There's nothing wrong with having concern for civilian life, but that's why vilifying Israel for every death is a
Israel isn't transporting weapons of mass destruction to our homeland. Okay.
Right, but
these guys were war, but they were war.
They're either kill or be killed.
But the Venezuelans,
but they're not coming in and holding. It's not as direct a absolute.
I see it as being direct.
Well, I hear you, but in my view, it isn't the same thing. It's kind of like the difference between, the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War and World War II. I mean, I can understand where someone might have questions about the Iraq War. I'm not saying it was all wrong. I'm just saying that when you're talking about life and death, my personal view, as you know, Rob, I always default to, and maybe this is the libertarian side of me, I feel like you don't go to war of any kind unless.
But we're not going to war.
Well, but killing people without a trial is war.
No, we're not killing without a trial. We're stopping the bad guy. If someone were to break into your home and threaten your family, you're going to try to stop them, and that's what we're doing now. That's what we're doing now.
If they were coming up on shore and blowing Americans' brains out, okay,
but they're aiming for shore. They're trying to bring their weapons of mass destruction.
Well, what is the weapon of mass destruction? The drugs.
Narcotics, drugs.
but you could argue that Americans are willingly, some of them, unfortunately, foolishly taking those drugs. It's not the same thing as holding a gun to someone's head and blowing their
Yeah, but
brains out.
it's still causing
It's
death
not.
and destruction
It
to
is
Americans.
indirectly, but
And we're
it
warning
isn't.
them. And we're warning them. We're
Well,
telling them. We
okay.
told
I
them to
mean,
stop.
yeah.
They
I
won't
mean,
stop.
I don't necessarily have a super strident position on it. All I'm saying is that I think when I think that, don't get me wrong, I think that once you're at war, if somebody's literally,
But we're not at war. We're not
push
at
you to the
war.
point that you have to go to war, then everybody can quit crying about the fact that there's a lot of death and destruction, because that's why you don't start wars. Okay. If
But
you
we're
don't
okay.
want, but in the case of this is people doing something, I'll grant you, criminal,
Bad. They're
maybe
bad.
evil, maybe, but is it the same as literally, what Pearl Harbor, or what happened on October 7th? I'm sorry, or September 11th? I don't think so. I don't
I
think that it
well,
quite rises to that level,
but it
even though
could.
it may be.
Right.
Well,
And they've been warned.
but you understand what I'm saying, why there might be an argument to be made that
Well,
we
I think the
should
argument that the Democrats
discuss
are making,
whether
right,
acting like we're at war is what's appropriate
well,
here, or
we're not at war. So we can't say that we're at war. We're not at war.
right.
They have been warned. They were told to stop. They don't want to stop. Okay. So we're saying if you don't stop, we're going to stop you. The president
Yeah.
he is under the Constitution to protect us from foreign invaders, to protect us from things that are coming here that will cause harm. So because they want to continue doing it and their little ragtag boats, we're going to stop you.
Well,
And the
I hear you,
Democrats are
but
behaving as if though we're going out and persecuting people who have done absolutely nothing
well,
wrong.
that's
They're being
foolish.
very
No,
disingenuous.
I don't think we're doing
That's
that, and I
right.
think they should
Right.
acknowledge it. But let me give you another example. It's like if somebody's stealing, you know what I mean? Yes, you have to stop them, but hopefully you're going to try first before you go to the most severe way to stop them, before you just kill them. You know what I mean? What you're going to
But
try to apprehend them first.
well, here's the
And
thing.
if
We're
they,
not trying to kill them. We're trying to stop them. And it's collateral damage. If you're going to be in the vehicle that's pushing weapons of mass destruction, you're going to be attacked. And then once you're attacked, if you're going to continue trying to save the good so you can continue pushing it here, okay, we're going to go at it again. That's within our rights. There's nothing that says that we can't do that. And that's what's happening. And then furthermore, all those individuals who are saying, oh my God, what is Trump doing? He has all these ships and things in the Caribbean and we're going to go to war. We're talking about Venezuela, okay? We're not talking about China. And even if we were talking about China, have any of these countries been at war or been at battle? When was the last time Venezuela was in a battle? Maybe a battle with their own people. Do you actually think that Venezuela can take out the superpower of the United States of America? Come on, folks. I hear all these people freaking out. Oh my God, we're going to war. Even Tucker Carlson said the other night that when Trump gave his speech last night, that he was going to say that America is going to war. Going to war with who? It's like saying that you have a Rottweiler who's going to go in and attack an ant. Come on, folks. Venezuela, the weapons that they have, they're old weapons that they got from Russia. Now, maybe they'll be able to launch a guerrilla attack or something, but if we go in, there's always an if, and I hope if this were to come to be true, we go in with all our might, one strike, and it's done. The same thing that we did with Iran. Okay, so for all those people who are like freaking out, oh my God, he's taking us to war and running around with your hair on fire, maybe it's a psychological thing. He's showing them, look at what you're going to be up against. So Maduro, you might want to just take option one and leave. But what is he doing? He's going to go and play to those silly Americans. It's like, oh, we're going to go and we're going to hurt Venezuela. How can they fight? They only have a ragtag army. I mean, and I've said the same thing about China. When people freak out about China, China's going to do this to us. When was the last time China was in a war? Let's just be honest. America seems to always be in some type of conflict. We're always fighting. Thank God now that Pete Hegseth is at the top of the Department of War, the recruitment is up. So I have every confidence in the world that whatever they do, they'll do the right thing. But this whole thing that we're marching to war, and you have the Democrats that are freaking out and saying, look at all the ships that are in the Caribbean Sea, and this doesn't look good, and Trump is going to take us to war, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, calm down, folks. We're talking about Venezuela. Do you actually think that they want to go against the might of the United States? Do you think China want to go against the might of the United States? Yes, China has a huge army on foot, but when was the last time they went to war? Ground-to-ground combat. When was the last time? Okay, whereas we're always in some little skirmish or another. Unfortunately, the Democrats put us into it, then we end up losing, save
Yes.
George Bush too. So, I mean,
Well,
I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
well,
I think that this is just, I think this is a psychological thing to threaten Maduro. You better get your little hiney out of there, because look at what we've got compared to what you have. You don't have anything. And then there are those that are saying, well, the moment we go in, then China's going to go into Taiwan. It's like, again, maybe they will. But do you actually think China wants to go against the United States? I think a lot of this is psychological warfare, to who can piss the longest or whatnot, and who has a bigger what than the other person. But I think that we worry unnecessarily about a lot of this stuff when we should be looking at or focusing on other things. I mean, we're the United States of America, and thank God Trump is at the top. And albeit a lot of people don't like him, they feel that he's like loud and boisterous, and he is, and I like that. Okay, but his policies work, and we have to be able to stop weapons of mass destruction in the form of narcotics from entering and coming onto our shore, the same way he stopped people from coming in at the border. You had Democrats saying, oh, it can't happen. Even Joe Biden, oh, it can't happen. Well, it could happen. We just needed a new president. And look at what happened. You even have some people who are self-deporting, and we need more of that. So I think that we worry unnecessarily, but I do think that we're sending a strong message to Venezuela, which is one that is needed, Heather, and that is to stop sending weapons of mass destruction to the United States.
but what do you really think, Rob?
I think we need to go in and kick him out and say, get out of here. Do you know who you're messing around with? Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Are you familiar with the Vanity Fair story with Susie Wiles? I'll give my thoughts, and then you can go in, because we're got like 15 minutes left. I had hoped that this administration had learned its lesson. The media, legacy media, does not like you. No matter what you do, they're not going to appreciate it. And they took a very low blow trying to make fun of the White House press secretary and say, oh, look at what she looks like, putting the camera, zooming in on her face. I'm thinking, are you serious? Are you serious? They did the same thing to Marco Rubio. But I'm like, guys, come on. And that shows you how petty they are to release photos trying to say that, oh, she looks horrible, she's had work done. Like, are you serious? I mean, the pettiness from the Vanity Fair. I mean, I don't read Vanity Fair. I think it's lost its luster about 20 years ago. But I just thought they were being really petty in putting out those photos. But I do think that the Susie Wiles should have thought twice before sitting down with an interview with them, because they weren't going to be fair at all. What are your thoughts, Heather?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it reminds me a little of like when our president gives interviews to Bob Woodward. And I mean, this was even more glaring because Vanity Fair, as you said, I mean, it used to be a juicy, sure, it had a kind of a more liberal leaning, but I mean, they had Dominic Dunn, they had some great writers. It
They have
just has
TD,
become,
Trump engagement syndrome.
I think they had, I think T.C. Boyle used to write for them, some really good, absolutely. I mean, they've just become a partisan sort of just a echo chamber, hitting you, hammering you over the head with their politics in almost every story. I remember, even back when Sarah Palin was on the scene, they ran a story called "It Came from Wasilla." It, like she's not even human. And I think that was the point at which I really got revolted by that. I thought it was revolting. I thought that it's just, I mean, on top of being dehumanizing and wrong. It's boring because, I mean, they're an example. It's like, don't these liberals ever get sick of hearing themselves? It's like no one ever has a novel take on anything. It's just the same boring bashing Trump, the fascists, scary, blah, blah, blah. This one's, I mean, you'd think they would just
Trump
get
derangement
tired.
syndrome.
I mean,
That's what
like
it
when you
is.
and I talk, we yes, we're conservative, but we don't sit there and agree about every blessed thing. I mean, they're just knee jerk, and yeah, and you go to get a magazine like that to relax and kind of let your hair down. You don't really go there for politics, but that's what they try to hit, weave into everything. So I'm surprised that the Trump administration wouldn't have known better than to trust them. I agree. I think maybe our president, and his staff, maybe they're just a little too naive or attention hungry sometimes. They want to be part of, maybe it's this like wanting to be part of the cool crowd and thinking that things have shifted enough that the popular kids are going to treat them nicer or something. But I think that yeah, Vanity Fair has really become a leftist, a kind of champagne leftist rag, an indoctrination chamber. And I stopped subscribing quite a while ago. And I used to enjoy it. So, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, like I said, the pictures that they were putting of Caroline Levitt and discussing her looks, like this is really juvenile. It's really catty, simply because she's doing a good job, simply because she is who she is. For them to, to say something like that, I thought, wow, that's really negative. And you would think that they would be above that, but they're not, because they, like so many others, suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. And it is so pervasive. And there was a doctor who was on one of the TV shows, I think it was Harris Faulkner, and he was describing Trump derangement syndrome, where people, I mean, would come in and say, "Oh, I'm having issues," and the first thing they would bring up was Donald Trump, and it would say, "Can you stop talking about him? Look at Rosie O'Donnell." I mean, it is a real disease, Trump derangement syndrome, and it has people acting out in such weird ways.
Right.
So while they're trying to, just make it seem as though Trump does not exist, history will record that there was such a thing as TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and it will give you all the symptoms, the characteristics, and people who suffered from it. And Vanity Fair is in that group, because all of these magazines, they can't say anything positive about the administration. It has to be negative. And whenever they talk about it, it's always Donald Trump. Look at Melania Trump. They could be covering her. But, I'm proud of her, because she said, I've passed that. I'm beyond that. I did that when I was younger. Now I want to do other things. So she's like grown up, so to speak. Like, whereas most girls want to be on the cover of all these magazines, she's like, I don't need that, because she knows who she is, and she's not defined by that. Whereas Michelle Obama, she's still trying to play the mean girl and trying to get on the cover of all these magazines. And it's like, are you serious? It's like, really, are you serious? Do you have that little self-esteem that this will define you? You have to see yourself there. But this is what the left want. To them, it makes them who they are. So they want to try and bury everyone else. But in doing so, they're giving them more power. As I said, TDS, that will go down in history as a mental illness that people from the left suffered from.
Well, I don't know that it's acknowledged by the medical community and the
It should be.
DSM, but I agree it probably should be. And I think in different times and places, people who have mental illness often it manifests in certain ways that are culturally specific. It's like, if I'm not mistaken, in certain cultures who are steeped in certain kinds of religious traditions, that will often the delusions people have will reflect the preoccupations of the culture a lot of times. Like in Judeo-Christian countries, a lot of people who are delusional and have delusions about who they are will think they're, Jesus Christ or something like that, because his personality is in his presence is felt deeply in our culture. And so maybe in a certain sense, because this is the obsession of so much national media and so many people,
Mhm.
that yeah, people who are unbalanced, who have mental and emotional problems are like attaching themselves to it or attaching it to themselves. He's like the scapegoat, and I think a lot of mental illness has, and sadly, a paranoiac quality. Paranoia, we know, is a big part of a lot of different kinds of mental illness. And I think that there's an element here for sure.
Right.
And, and something in human nature, even people who aren't mentally ill, sadly, we see that the urge to scapegoat is very pervasive, and
Yeah.
it's not the prettier side of human nature, but we've seen a lot of liberals really, I think, in a lot of ways, dishonor the proud tradition of liberalism and,
Yep.
what political liberalism has meant in this country, what it has done, progressivism in positive ways in other eras, whether you're talking civil rights, women's rights, whether you're talking about, those who peacefully protested the Vietnam War, which was a questionable war, in the minds of a lot of people. I mean, I think there was a time and a place when being a liberal was courageous and a proud tradition. And now, I mean, you basically just have people just rebels without a cause, and their
Yep.
cause is hating Donald Trump.
Yep, TDS. Well, Heather, what can I say? We're all out of time, but I want to thank all of our listeners and folks or viewers for tuning in to After Dark on the America Emboldened Network. I want to thank Greg Bolden for having us on. We do enjoy our time here, and when you can't see us here, you can always listen to us on AmericaOutloud.news Monday through Wednesday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. I almost forgot the time because we're like always changing things up there. But thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you will come back. Until then, God bless America, God bless Israel, and hope you have a fantastic Christmas and enjoy the rest of Hanukkah. Thank you. Good night, Heather.
Good night, Rob.
After Dark with Rob and Andrew, speaking the truth like they're born to do. Voices strong, opinions tight, shining in the midnight light. After dark, no holding back. They keep you steady when the world's off track.